Hello, welcome to the Rotten Horror Picture Show, the horror movie podcast where we talk about films off the Rotten Tomatoes 200 Best Horror Movies of All Time list. My name is Clay McCormick, and with me as always, Tipsy Hedren herself. Amanda, how are you doing, Amanda?
Oh, I'm good. I drove my Aston Martin here about 97 miles per hour, and I brought my carafe of travel martinis, so I'm ready to go.
You had to ask my next-door neighbor how to get to my lake house.
Yeah, and then I broke in.
Yeah, yes. Yes. We, of course, are talking about Da Birds. Remember that one? Da Birds.
Yep, everyone remembers.
Accurate joke. Which is number 38 on our list with a 94% Rotten Tomatoes score, 83% audience score. Had you seen this before?
Yes, but it's been a very long time. Very long time.
Have you read the short story?
No. I was really pleasantly surprised to find out that it's my girl Daphne du Maurier who wrote the short story. She of Rebecca fame.
Yeah, I didn't. I recognized the name, but I didn't know anything that she had done.
You've seen Rebecca, though,
I actually have not. Funny thing about that, I actually have Rebecca in my house, in the closet. No, I'm just kidding. Laura actually was getting rid of it, and she's like, "Do you want this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've never seen it." So
why did she get rid of it?
It's in my pile, which is getting bigger and bigger, as you can probably see. I am now just surrounded by Giallo movies.
I mean,
I've completed
there are a few boxes.
Giallo Essentials Infinity Gauntlet.
And now you will snap your fingers and half of the world will become Italian?
And topless.
Pick carefully which half.
Yes. That reminds me, when we're done, I have to tell you about...
Get topless?
Yeah, well, listen. You're married. Please don't.
You're essentially married.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah.
I do have to tell you about Strip Nude for Your Killer, which I watched the other day, which is...
I don't know if you do have to tell me about that.
It has one of the most insane endings I've ever seen in one of these movies, and not for the reasons you'll think. But
okay.
Anyway, I had seen The Birds. I think I saw it once, probably 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I do remember reading the short story in high school. It may have actually been
really interesting.
It may have been early. It must have been high. It was when we still had, like, you get like the one book in English class, and it's got like a bunch of short stories and stuff in it.
Sir, I worked on those books when I worked in publishing. Yeah.
Well, whatever grade you get those.
Yeah.
I read it in one of those.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I do remember the teacher. That was probably when I watched the movie. Honestly, I probably watched it after that. And I do remember the teacher pointing out that in the actual short story, most of the stuff that happens in that is not in the movie. It's actually in The Birds 2. They made a sequel that's actually closer to the story than the original was.
Interesting. What an interesting choice to have your students read that short story. I guess when it's between, you need something along the lines of Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, but you're tired of doing that every year. You just pick something vaguely adjacent of like, yes.
I think we did
Random Death.
I don't think that was the same year, but I do remember reading that.
Yeah. That's a big one. It's a big one in schools.
I was disappointed to find out it was not a guide on how to win the lottery.
No, it's the kind of lottery you don't want to win.
Yes. So that's the only time I think I've seen it. Of course, it's a classic Alfred Hitchcock film, which we will talk about in a couple minutes after we play the trailer. We've been on a weird run of trailers lately where most of our trailers are just like silent.
I hope this one is just bird noises for 3 minutes.
Next time,
wings flapping and birds screeching.
On Patreon for Bay of Blood, I ended up using, like I did on Dead and Buried, I used the Trailers from Hell clip with
because
Edgar
you needed
Wright.
some words because this is an audio medium.
Because it was just like like Italian giallo kind of like
I hope somebody
mid-tempo
saves that
funk.
and loops it and makes it their ringtone.
Why not? Ringtone?
Yeah.
What year are you in?
Isn't it like 2002?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, trailer. We'll be right back.
How do you do? My name is Alfred Hitchcock, and I would like to tell you about our good friends, the birds.
That's the damnedest thing I ever saw.
Birds just don't go around attacking people without no reason.
Yes, they attack the children. Attack them. What's the matter with all the birds?
Birds are not aggressive creatures, miss. They bring beauty into the world.
Those gulls attack.
Impossible.
They came in right down the chimney.
Why are they doing things?
It's the end of the world.
Are the birds gonna eat us, Mommy?
Get yourselves guns and wipe them off the face of the earth.
That would hardly be possible.
Mitch, don't!
The 5 continents of the world contain more than 100 billion birds.
All at once, the birds were everywhere. Why don't you all go home? Lock your doors and windows. Did you get the windows in the attic? When do you think they'll come? What happens when you run out of wood?
I don't know.
You don't know. When will you know? When we're all dead. They're coming. They're coming.
All right, Duh Birds. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock, written by Evan Hunter, based on a short story by Daphne du Maurier, starring Tippi Hedren, Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy, Suzanne Plachette, and Baby Lambert from Alien, Veronica Cartwright.
Baby Lambert.
Baby Lambert. And it's
Aw.
fun. It's really fun to watch this knowing that, because she goes into Lambert mode pretty solidly about halfway through this movie.
Yeah. There's some good Lambert panic in here.
Yes. Amanda, what happens in Duh Birds?
Other than the Lambert panic. You mean. Melanie Daniels meets Mitch Brenner in a San Francisco pet store and decides to follow him home. She brings with her the gift of 2 lovebirds, and they strike up a romance. One day, though, birds start attacking children at Mitch's sister's party. A huge assault starts on the town by the attacking birds.
Yeah, it's weird.
Summarizing this movie is actually like a really difficult prospect, because no matter how you put it, it sounds just kind of weird and boring.
Yeah.
Like, birds attack people.
Yeah, I would say, to sum it up in a single sentence, it's 40 minutes of classic Hitchcock weird relationship stuff with doubling and Oedipal undertones, and then birds start killing people.
Well, Clay, some things you'll find in this movie include birds.
All right, we're done here.
Good night, everyone. A classist, racist child.
Yes, she doesn't explicitly call out the skin color of the hoods.
Yes, of the hoods
That she
that her
talks
brother
about, but
associates with.
I think you can probably do your own research on that one.
You'll also find 60s flirting, i.e. lying.
Yes, that was my favorite part. It's like, ooh, isn't this cute? It's like they're just straight up lying to each other.
Yes, they are just constantly lying to one another in increasingly elaborate ways.
Basis for a solid relationship.
Yeah, true love right there. You'll also find mommy issues slash mommy's issues.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of both.
Yeah, there's some very strange things going on in this, and
Yes.
I'm
around Lydia specifically.
Yeah, I am looking forward to talking about that, because I can't decide if I like it or if I think it's just a waste of time.
We will get into it. You'll also find spooky song class.
Yep, you got to keep a song with so many verses.
Many verses.
You got to do them all, because you got to make sure all the birds show up.
A harbinger.
Yes, is
My
a harbinger
favorite?
is a harbinger a bird? No.
No,
No. Okay,
I don't think so.
You know what I'm doing? There is a
Are you thinking of an albatross?
Nope. There is a old, I think, a DC comic called maybe it's Valiant. Anyway, the logo for this group called Harbinger was a bird, so I just always assumed like that was. Anyway, moving on.
I think sometimes there's symbolism. Like
Yeah.
birds are a harbinger of a type.
Regardless, it's nice to see your Prophet of Doom
Yes.
show up so early on in horror movie history.
One of my favorite archetypal characters.
Also, always drunk.
Yes.
Screaming stuff.
Gotta be drunk to deal with the knowledge that the world is about to end.
You kind of technically have two, don't you? Because you get the one guy who's screaming about stuff, and then you have the one woman who's like, the birds will eventually kill everybody, and it's just like very middle of the road.
The ornithologist.
Yes, the woman who I was convinced was just a bunch of birds wearing a human suit.
Maybe she was. And last but certainly not least important, a very well stocked bar.
Yeah, I wouldn't have noticed that unless you pointed it out. And as soon as you pointed it out,
it's impossible not to notice how much booze.
That was like a diner.
Yes. There's like children ordering like an omelet.
Yeah.
And like, I want
it was like 14
grape
bottles
jelly
of
on my toast. And
J&B behind them.
Yes. There was like 260 bottles of alcohol behind that bar.
I was trying to figure out if that was an intentional stylistic choice, either to keep up with the idea of just amassing, like, because the bottles sit on the shelf, kind of like the birds sit on the thing. But then I was thinking like, oh, well, there's so many bottles because the birds are going to fly in and smash everything.
Right.
But that doesn't happen.
No.
So.
And that restaurant, diner, whatever you want to call it, is a real place.
Yes.
So.
It is.
Is that really how this owner stocks his diner?
Might be. Apparently the owner's name is Mitch, and I'm not making this up. IMDb might be making this up, but I'm not.
I like how you can tell immediately now from my face that I think you're lying to me.
The owner's name is Mitch, and when Hitchcock asked him if he could shoot there, he said, yes, but you need to name the main character Mitch, and I need to have a line. And so he did both of those, and that's why the main character's name is Mitch. And then at a certain point in that scene, the actual owner of the bar says, like, Mitch, what's going on? Or something like that. So.
What a piece of trivia.
Yes. I have 3 questions for you.
Shoot.
1, how do you feel about birds?
I like birds.
You like birds?
I absolutely like birds.
Yeah.
Big fan of crows, unsurprisingly.
Yeah. What about like groups of birds?
I think they're fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not threatened by them at all?
No. I'm the type of person who, when I work from home, sits and stares out my window and watches the crows chase the hawk out of the neighborhood to protect their nests. And I think it's so cool how they work as like a team.
My girlfriend hates birds.
Interesting.
And has a story about trying to get on the bus to go to her soccer game, but she first needed to get something out of her car, which was being guarded by a turkey.
Oh,
and she couldn't get in the car because the turkey kept chasing her around the car.
I can picture this really perfectly.
Yes. So she is not a fan of birds, and we actually had a birds moment last year. Went on our way to walking from my hotel to the Javits Center for New York Comic Con. We were going down this one street, and I just happened to look up, and on either side of the street, lining the roofs, was like 500 pigeons.
Pigeon army.
Yeah, and I think it was just because that's where the sun was hitting.
Yeah.
So, and we were just walking, and I just kind of tapped her on the shoulder, and I pointed up, and she was like,
and then she turned into one of those fainting goats.
Yes,
she froze, and you had to carry her the rest of the way.
Do I like birds? I don't know if I like birds.
I had my the birds moment in college. I lived in a area that was all kind of, from the outside, looks like very classy, nice brownstones, but they chopped them up into little awful dorm rooms. But my building had this pretty little courtyard because it was kind of a U shape. And I was coming in to go to my room to get like books or something, to go back to my friend's place and study, whatever. And as I was walking towards the main door, I looked up, and it was only like a three floors brownstone building, and a turkey vulture was sitting on the top over my door. And I don't know if you've ever seen a turkey vulture.
I don't think so.
They are the worst parts of both turkey and vulture.
Excellent.
They're fucking huge.
Yeah.
They're really, really big.
Wait, this is in Boston?
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah, so it just sort of looked down on me and then casually opened its wings. And it's got like, I mean, I'm probably exaggerating this, but it felt like a 5-foot wingspan.
Sure, possible.
It just felt enormous, and
They used to be dinosaurs,
turned around and I left.
That's fair.
Because I was like, I'm just not, you can have the building, that's fine. I don't need it.
I actually once almost got staircased, which is fun.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you believe the owl theory is what you're telling
Listen,
me.
I'm not discounting it. Honestly,
He killed his wife.
I don't know. Owl theory is pretty fun, but
It's fun, but he killed his wife.
probably. I was packing up from a gig that I played with my band at a VFW or something, and I had come out. I was coming out through the front door, and I kind of like caught it in my eye just for a second. I saw an owl, and then all of a sudden the owl was flying at my head, and it just swooped down at me and went over me and perched on the doorway.
Oh,
and
wow.
I freaked out and then went in through the back door for the rest of the night as we were out loading out.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Owls are intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can cause people to kill their wives.
Or they can attack entire towns and keep
That's
them
true.
in a state of horror.
That's true. Question 2. How do you feel about Alfred Hitchcock?
He's another one where I have deeply mixed feelings because I love so much of his work, but from all accounts, he sounds like he was an extremely complicated man to know in real life. And I think that's a very polite way of putting it. He sounds like he could be extremely charming or an absolute monster. And so it kind of goes back to like the conversations we've had on and off about Roman Polanski, where it's like the reconciling, knowing a person who made art you really love was not a good person in their life kind of thing.
Do you have a favorite Hitchcock movie? Have you seen like a lot of them?
I've seen a bunch.
I ask because I consider myself someone who's seen a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And I've seen like maybe 4 Hitchcock movies.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It's never really clicked with me.
Oh.
I keep waiting for it to.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I really like Hitchcock. I've probably seen...
That didn't sound condescending. That did.
No, it didn't at all.
Listen, I've seen a lot of movies, all right? I know
But you have.
someone like you probably hasn't.
No, but in all seriousness, typically the pattern here is you say, have you seen this movie? And I say no. And then you tell me how many times you've seen it.
Yeah, the only reason that's in there is so I can lord that over you.
Yeah, I
every
know.
time it happens.
I'm aware.
Okay.
So I know what I signed up for.
And then any time that you've seen it and I haven't, that's why I always say, well, nobody likes that movie.
Yeah, I mean, that one's not very good.
Yeah.
We shouldn't do that one. No, I really enjoy Hitchcock. I think my favorite is probably Psycho, just because I think it's such a perfect horror movie. I think it's done so well, and like, I don't know. I there's something about it that's like so simple and yet so terrifying when you think about it.
Yeah.
But I have a big soft spot for Rebecca because I love the novel so much. Like the novel is like one of my all-time favorite pieces of literature. So yeah, but I also like Shadow of a Doubt's really good, and like Vertigo is really good.
Have I seen? I think I've seen Shadow of a Doubt. I know I've seen. I've watched. I think I went through a period where I tried to get into his movies, and I didn't make it very far.
Is Rear Window's Hitchcock too?
Yes,
right?
I like Rear Window.
I love Rear Window.
I have a good Rear Window story to tell you that is depressing, but
oh no.
yeah, I remember I was really looking forward to watching some Hitchcock movies, and the first one that I watched was North by Northwest.
Yeah, it's not the best one to start with.
Bored the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I thought it was really boring.
I can understand that. I like that one, but I can see why.
Yeah, Rear Window I liked. Psycho. I'm looking forward to watching Psycho for this because I know I've seen Psycho only like maybe 3 or 4 times.
Really?
And my first opinion of Psycho is the one that is most prominent in my head, even though I know I've seen it since and been like, okay, this is better than I remember it being.
Yeah.
But my memory of Psycho, the first time I watched it was the beginning's great, the ending is great, the middle's kind of boring. And it like I do
interesting.
Yeah, the last time I watched it, I do remember thinking, "Oh yeah, I was wrong. This is pretty good." But I don't know it well enough to tell you why that is.
Huh. I'm looking forward to talking about that one when we do it too.
Yeah, and Vertigo, like I've saw it, but that's another one I'd like to see again because I was kind of like, yeah, it's fine. Like it didn't really. I'm not saying you shouldn't. It just
Clay, stop yelling at me.
But when we were in California not too long ago, and we went on the Paramount Studios tour, which was very fun. We got to see the alleyway behind the medical building where they shot a scene from a love scene from Top Gun, which was fun. And our tour guide, who thankfully, so I don't blow her cover, I can't remember what her name was, but she was great. But she liked to tell, spill the tea, as it were.
Oh.
She made sure to shut her microphone off before she did so, which I'm not going to do. And we drove by.
If we went silent for the next 45 seconds.
We drove by the studio, the soundstage where they shot Rear Window, and she said that there's an elevator on the outside so that they can kind of bring stuff in if you have like a multi-level set.
Yeah.
She said it's the only elevator on the lot that also goes down past the ground level, because when they were shooting Rear Window, Hitchcock, without asking anybody, dug up the entire floor of the soundstage 20 feet down.
Holy shit.
So he could add another layer to his set.
Wow.
And he ended up using that elevator to bring cars down, because it's a street set.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Bring cars down that cars would drive down the street.
Yep.
Real cars that were turned on and the engines were going. Apparently caused the death of 4 people.
Holy shit.
Which was then covered up by the studio. And so if you watch the movie, you can see what they did instead. I don't know why this was their second idea, but they just put the cars in neutral and pushed them. So if you watch the movie, apparently you can see extras walking down the street, hugging the cars pretty close, because they are actually pushing the cars down the street. Why 4 people needed to die in order to come up with that idea is anybody's guess.
Is that real? I'm sorry, I have to ask. Is that really true?
From
the backlot
Cindy's
tour?
lips to God's ears. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that's very. I mean, that, whether it's apocryphal or it's true, I feel like that's a pretty representative story about Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Is that he wanted things exactly the way he wanted it, and he didn't really care who suffered to make it that way.
Yeah.
And
just
as
to
a
be
result,
specific,
he's made.
It was exhaust that killed them. They didn't get hit by the cars.
Right. Yes. Yes. But he wanted real cars to really drive,
Right.
and
Yeah.
he didn't care if it was in an area with zero ventilation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also saw his office, which was specifically built with a bay window on it, so people could spy on him to make sure that he was working, because I guess he was very known for not working.
Shirking.
And so he actually, when he moved in there, he put 3 bookcases up in front of that window so nobody could see in the window.
Nice.
Anyway, third question.
Okay.
How do you feel about this movie, The Birds?
I have mixed...
We start talking about 20 minutes into the show.
I know. Welcome, everyone. This is what you come for. I actually have mixed feelings about this one. I would have to say this is maybe one of my least favorite Hitchcock movies that I've ever seen. But again, I like most of the movies of his I have seen. I actually really enjoyed. So that's not an insult per se. It's just a lot of other ones bubble to the top for me over this one.
Yeah.
It's just such a strange movie. The pacing is really weird. The characters, when you think about them for more than a minute, are really strange. The relationships are really strange. It's the kind of movie where I feel like it's ripe for interpretation, because so much of it's so ambiguous.
Yeah.
But I don't know if any of that is actually baked into the movie intentionally.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's an oddly blank slate that I think you can project a lot of stuff onto, but I'm not sure how much of that is like craft versus coincidence.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, because as it was kind of finishing up, my thought was, this feels a lot like a Stephen King story.
Yeah.
Because it has that same kind of, I mean, like, I know that they're in San Francisco or the Bay Area or whatever, but like that could have been Maine.
Yeah.
And
everybody speaks with that sort of Hollywood of that time accent.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it could
where
be
everybody's
anywhere.
like, well, she was driving the car down the road, so we don't know.
Mid-Atlantic or whatever
Yes.
the thing is. And this idea that there's this human character story that is sort of underpinning the attack of nature or whatever the scary thing is, just felt very much like a story Stephen King would write. It might be because I was just thinking about the end of The Dark Half when all those birds destroy the house.
Oh, yeah, that might do it.
Maybe.
I mean, Stephen King also kind of does do the thing of like when something unimaginable happens to sort of everyday people.
Yes.
That's very much in his wheelhouse, and that's very much what this movie kind of feels like.
Definitely, yeah. And so I started thinking about, well, are the birds supposed to represent something? Like I couldn't tell if they were.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's the closest that they come, which is obviously total hyperbole, is in that scene in the diner where the woman straight up screams at Tippi Hedren that she's evil and this is only happening because she came to town.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the ornithologist again.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Where she talks about how humans are destroying the planet and birds bring beauty and nature is great and how people are ruining everything. Yeah,
that's not like a theme of the movie at all, though.
You know, it's not, but there's been a lot of conversation around it. Like, I feel like at one point there was like a quote attributed to Hitchcock about how he was like, yeah, it's because people are destroying their habitat.
Yeah.
And the birds want revenge. That's it. That's the explanation. And I don't know if I can't attribute that, so I can't, since I can't cite my sources, you can all disregard what I've said. But even if he did say it, it strikes me as the kind of flippant thing that you might say after, 30 years of people asking you, well, what does it mean?
Yeah. And I was trying to decide if it needs to mean anything. I don't know if it does. And the thing that was tripping me up was like, I feel like the first half of it is there's so much weird stuff going on under the surface as far as these character relationships.
Yes.
And, first of all, what's her name? Madeline?
Melanie? Miss Melanie
Lanolin?
Daniels.
Like sheep's wool? Melanie is a psychopath.
What makes you say this?
Because this guy who she doesn't know comes in and pulls this weird prank on her, and her response is to go to his house, and then when she finds out that he is not home, get the address of the place that he is, drive there, which is like a 2-hour drive away.
Yes.
Or an hour and a half if you take the PCH or whatever it is. Then break into his house.
Yes.
Technically, door wasn't locked. Is it really breaking and entering?
It's definitely trespassing.
Yeah. Break into his house. Leave 2 live animals with a card for his sister, who she goes out of her way to find out what her name is.
Yeah.
It's psychopath behavior.
Oh, yeah.
And then she
I was just curious
she watches
which
from a boat.
Part of this really set you on this path that she's a psychopath. Like, she obviously is.
Yeah.
Not arguing with you.
And again, it's like,
how quickly did you know?
Yeah, it's like the flirting thing, though, where it's like, I can see why this might be like, oh, it's cute. But it's psychopath behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's she's a really fascinating character because of the way she sort of develops over the course of the movie. And I don't know, develops isn't the right word. Changes, I guess. Because she goes from this very glib sort of socialite, because she is a socialite. She's rich. Her dad owns a newspaper company. And she is kind of known in the gossip columns for being a little bit of a lady about town kind of deal. And she has this sort of defensive exterior where she very much deflects things with her, like, her lying, and most of her lies are like pretty benign. They're kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you lie about that? Like, she's not.
It reminded me of, do you remember in the first Michael Keaton Batman movie, when he's having the party at his house?
Yes.
And Vicky Vale runs into him and says, could you please tell me which one of these guys is Bruce Wayne? And he goes, well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, thanks, and walks away. And I always thought, like, what a weird thing to say.
At least from him, I kind of understand it because there's a little bit of a defensiveness of like, who the hell are you and why are you looking for me?
Right.
Like,
Why are you at my party?
I have actual secrets to maintain.
Yes.
Whereas Melanie doesn't have any actual secrets.
Yes.
Like,
Right.
her actual secret is that she's not as much of a ditz and a sort of enfant terrible. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's not as much of a bad socialite as she is portrayed as in the newspapers.
Yeah.
She's much more like, she takes classes at Berkeley and she raises money for Korean children to go to school. But she's so weird because she lies seemingly without motivation. And then she kind of keeps them going longer than it seems like she should. And then midway through the movie, she just becomes like almost like a different character.
Yeah.
Where she leaves all of that behind and becomes a mixture of the heroine of the movie, but also a damsel in distress.
Yes.
For Mitch to save. And all of a sudden, we see her in this much more maternal light. Like, she's very doting and affectionate with Kathy. Like, immediately. Like, right away, she has, like, become another, like a big sister or a mother figure to Kathy. Where she's taking care of these other kids at the party or at the school. And she's even taking care of the ill mother when the mother needs caretaker. Like, all of a sudden, she goes from this sort of, like, I wear my fur coat to go stalk a man to the countryside. To, like, I'm going to make the tea for your poor, sweet mother.
She and become help. As Oppenheimer would say.
Very nice. Very timely reference.
Yeah, it's strange because, you know, there's her thing and there's the plot, the subplot about the mother who is afraid that her son is going to leave her. And, like, there's all this other stuff you could get into that seems to be on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why you would do it this way if it wasn't, where the mother looks a lot like Melanie.
Yes.
And Mitch is in his, like, mid-30s.
Yeah.
His sister is 11.
Yeah.
He refers to his mother as darling.
Uh-huh.
And he refers to his sister as, like, honey or something.
Honey,
right?
and
like a very
dear,
something,
yeah,
something you would say to your daughter, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's clear that he is, this age gap and this weird mother thing is like he has moved into the role of the father who has passed away.
Yeah.
And
he's the man of the house. Yeah.
Right. And you know, it's kind of weird, but
yes. There's even a line, I think Annie says it and I love it, where it's all credit to Oedipus.
Yes. Yeah. And then Annie's got her own shit where she's had dated Mitch for like 4 years and they broke up, but then she moved to his town.
I think they are
she
dating.
Moved there before
they're
they broke
dating
up?
and she moves there and then they break up.
Yeah.
I think is what happens.
Yeah.
I don't, but it functionally it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
they were together, they broke up, and she stayed in the town.
Right, because she says to Melanie, she's like, I stayed because I just, I like hanging out with Mitch. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, she's like, I still like him very much. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, what does that mean? This movie.
I don't get what everybody likes about Mitch personally.
I do not see
kind of
it.
a blank slate.
Yes, he's, I don't know, fine.
Yeah.
He seems annoying, but like, okay.
He's a 1960s 33, which is like a 2023 60.
Yes. When you told me he was 33, I was just like, what happened?
Adjusted for smoke inhalation.
Yes, and 11 a.m. martinis every day. But I feel like there is a reading of this movie that is going to, I feel like there's this interpretation that is often kind of dismissed as vaguely misogynist, where the movie is kind of about all of these women flocking around the one man.
Sure.
It's like there are men in the background of this movie, but he's the only like named male character.
Yep. For the most part. I think so.
I mean, there's of
the consequence anyway.
Exactly. There's the guy in the diner and
the world's greatest policeman.
The world's greatest policeman and the guy who runs through the boat and the postman. But like, there's no character,
right?
Other than him, that's a man.
Yeah.
that plays a really active role throughout.
I feel
the
like
movie.
even at the birthday party, it's all women.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
know
mothers.
that for sure, but I'm just
I don't think.
gonna guess.
I mean, part of that I think is like the norms of the '60s is like the
Right,
fathers
yeah.
would not be hanging out at a
But still.
child's birthday. But you're right. You're right.
All those liquor bottles were female.
Yeah. But it's weird because he is like the one man in this world that is available to these women, and he has to fill all the roles. Like he has to be kind of like boyfriend and husband and father and son and brother. Like he has to do all of it for all of these women who he kind of becomes responsible for. But he's not very good at it.
So this movie is just a metaphor for Mitch just trying to watch the game.
I
But-
mean,
but, you
yeah,
know,
she's going to change the channel and
people
he's
keep
going to
nagging
shoot
him.
her 6 times in the head.
They keep nagging him. Can't just watch the game in peace.
But
Right, guys?
But it is. There's like this weird. Like I think we what we're kind of trying to get at is that there are these weird undertones between all these characters where there's something else going on, especially with Melanie and Mitch. It doesn't make sense on the surface why she likes him so much.
Right.
At first. It doesn't make sense why he likes her. And then the mother, Lydia, treats him like he's one of the kids, quote unquote, but then also sort of relies on him like he's her partner, like he has replaced his father.
Yeah.
And so she's scared of being abandoned by him, but she also is kind of subservient to him. It's all just very strange, and it makes the relationship between Melanie and Lydia really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she's walked into a Principal and Mrs. Skinner situation, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's I think what's the most interesting to me about all this is like I don't know if I don't know if Melanie is a strong enough character with any real take on her.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she gets there. She does her shtick or whatever. And the birds thing doesn't happen until she gets there. Like, and
Right.
she's the first one who gets attacked.
Right.
And I think like the second person. Like it
There's
feels
some
like
small evidence that something's getting weird when she first goes to the pet store.
oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
so
there's
birds
like
are all
there's a
kinda going on.
ton
Okay.
of birds, and she even says to the pet store owner, "Why do you think they're doing that? I've never seen so many gulls. Why are they here?"
Yeah.
And the pet store owner says something like, "Oh, you know, sometimes storms drive them inland."
But, you know, I thought there was something to the fact that like this doesn't really begin until she gets there and she's the first one who gets hit. So like obviously I'm thinking like
She's the harbinger.
yeah, I'm not as extreme as the old lady who just says that.
Yeah.
But like I don't think like the obvious read on it would be like she is encroaching on this ecosystem and nature is trying to push her back or something like that. But I don't feel like there's enough character in her to make it feel like she's gotten there and is like messing stuff up. You know what I mean? Like if she, because she's this, they play her off as this like socialite who's you know kind of a reformed party girl or something.
Yeah.
But like she doesn't have any sort of fish out of water thing where she gets to this place and she's like, ugh. You know, or you know what I mean?
No, yeah, she kind of comes right in. She manages to find the right people to talk to really quickly. She rents the boat, and they're like, "Have you ever handled a boat with an outboard motor?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah.
And they're like,
And
"Oh,"
I
which
wonder.
is weird for a socialite. Like
Yeah.
that's strange
Well,
for her to just be like, "Of course I do." What are you talking
she
about?
did spend a lot of time in that fountain, so maybe she knows
She boated
boating.
around.
Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe I'm asking too much from a movie from 1963 to because like clearly you want your audience to like her and to like him.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to get at. But it seems like there's not much character on the. If there is character on the bone, they don't really lean into it enough for me to really be engaged by her change or her story. You know?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because, like, I think what I was trying to say earlier, and maybe doing kind of a poor job of it, is that they sort of sand down what character she does have.
Yeah.
Like, further into the movie.
You did say that poorly, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. By the end of the movie, she's borderline catatonic.
Right.
Whatever character she had is totally gone.
Right.
And I actually really like the scene between her and the mother in the bedroom. It maybe goes on a little too long, but I enjoy the fact that it gives both of these women an opportunity to talk to one another with no one else in the room. And they do sort of air out, at least Lydia, the mom, kind of airs out everything that's going on in her head. And it lets you sort of avoid the stereotype that she's just going to be the bitchy mother,
right,
and that Melanie is going to have to come in and either like break her hold over Mitch or like teach her how to be fun again.
Right. Yeah,
you know, which
yeah.
I think would have been kind of a more stereotypical and boring relationship for them to have.
Yeah.
But there's something that Lydia says in the midst of her kind of, you know, lamenting losing her husband and talking about how tired she is and how difficult her life has been since her husband passed. She says, I haven't even gotten a chance to figure out whether or not I like you. And I think that's kind of a problem for the audience, too, throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Is that, like, do we like her?
Yeah.
I don't know if we're actually supposed to. I think we are, but
yeah.
She is strangely vacant.
Yeah,
as a character.
I find it to be a novel twist, but also makes me wonder what they were going for with this stuff at the end when she does. Well, listen, anybody who opens a door to a room full of birds gets scared and then in a scared manner walks into the room deserves what she's going to get.
Well, isn't there some infamous thing where she asked, where the Tippi Hedren asked Hitchcock, but why would I do that?
Oh,
and
really?
Hitchcock said,
yeah.
Because I told you to.
No, I mean they do it in such a way where it's like that's the best that could probably be. But,
yeah.
But like, you know, she goes into this room that's full of birds and gets attacked and ends up totally catatonic, like you said. And so it's not like the end of the movie is Mitch and Melanie walking out together hand in hand.
But you know what moment there is? There's the moment where they've gotten her into the car. And Lydia gets in the back seat with her. Instead of Mitch or Kathy, it's Lydia.
Sure.
And Lydia holds her. And there's this moment where it very purposely kind of focuses just on the two of them and their faces. And Melanie's in this very like child position of like leaning like you would if you were sick or you were hurt as a child, you'd lean on your mom.
Right.
And Lydia looks down at her and kind of like smiles like benevolently, like lovingly, and strokes her hair. And it's sort of a moment where it's like Melanie is getting the mothering she hasn't gotten from her own mother, because we find out earlier that her mother abandoned them when she was like 10, and Lydia has accepted this, you know, because there was the whole, when Melanie talks to Annie about trying to be with Mitch and saying, you know, Lydia won't accept anyone, and it's like, well, why can't she think of it as gaining a daughter?
Right.
And there is sort of a moment, I think we're supposed to read, that between them, their bond has been secured.
Because now she's not a threat.
Kind of. She is in need.
Yeah.
And like, I think that triggers something in Lydia to say, yeah, she's not a threat. She is somebody else I can take care of, and I know I'm good at that.
I honestly, now that you're saying all that stuff, I think there is an argument that the story isn't about her and Mitch, it's about her and the mother.
I think it kind of is.
Yeah.
Which maybe it's not intentionally, but I think that's the more interesting story.
Yeah.
Which is why I included the mommy issues / mommy's issues in our Things You'll Find, because I think it's much more about like maternal child relationships.
Yeah.
Like who is in a mothering position at what point in time, and who is a suitable mother and who is not, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the birds show up.
Yeah.
And I
Let's talk about the horror elements.
I wasn't sure what to expect because I hadn't seen this movie in a long time. I couldn't remember. Obviously, there's that classic shot of the the birds flying onto the jungle gym and stuff. I actually
I love that.
When we were in California, we went to the new Academy Museum, which is very cool. It's kind of finding its footing.
Yeah.
You know, it's brand new. They actually had what's that thing called? Mount Rushmore backdrop from North by Northwest.
Oh, cool.
Which was cool. But they also had storyboards from the sequence of the birds, where the birds all
spooky song class.
Yeah, which I found very it tickled me a bit as an artist, because I was looking at them and I was like, okay, I can see the exact point where this guy got or girl, I can't remember, got sick of drawing birds.
Yeah.
And then they just turn into like little like brush marks and smudges and stuff. I was like, okay, that's what I would do too.
Too many birds.
But it's it's a really well constructed sequence. But the bird stuff in general I thought looked fantastic.
Yeah.
The live bird stuff, plus any fake birds that they were doing, plus any what the hell's it called? Not overlay, like the blue screen type stuff.
Yeah.
Which I did learn. I'm not going to go into this because it's boring, but
long and boring.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
The traditional blue screen, they couldn't. It didn't work because the birds were like too difficult to capture and separate out, and so they used this process called sodium vapor process.
Oh.
Which is a specific process. Oh, fuck it, I'll just go into it. Okay, so instead of a blue screen,
Buckle up, everyone.
I find it kind of fascinating because
this is when you go get your snack.
Yeah. Instead of a blue screen, it's a white screen. And they light the white screen with sodium vapor lights, which have a very specific like yellow-orange color.
Okay.
And they use this specific camera that has a specific prism inside the camera that when you film with it, the prism actually separates the yellow color from the red, green, and blue color. And so it's like a 3-strip Technicolor camera built to do this specifically. So there's a red strip filming red strip, green strip, blue strip. And so this has essentially a 4th strip for this sodium vapor color.
Yeah.
And the prism splits the 2 light waves.
Yeah.
So you get essentially on the sodium vapor strip, you'll get a perfectly cut out matte of the background.
Oh.
And then on the other ones, you get all the information from the actors, which are in full color. And so it's basically it's another way of doing like keyframing stuff.
Yeah.
It's only one camera was ever created that could do this.
Holy shit.
And it was owned by Disney. And so you had to rent it from Disney if you were going to use it, and it apparently was very expensive.
I can only imagine.
One of probably the most famous use of it was Mary Poppins. When they're in the cartoon world, they did that with the sodium vapor thing. But it's just I find this stuff. I always find that stuff fascinating because like all these problems that they solve to do these special effects and stuff, and how this stuff has evolved is very fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I do think that it's interesting because even in those moments where, as a modern day viewer, you might look and say like, oh, the birds look kind of weird, like they look kind of superimposed here or whatever. It's easy to forget that like this was what 1963 this came out, so they were working on it early 60s.
Yeah, probably 61, 60, yeah.
Yeah, so like it looks amazing.
Yeah.
For that time period. Like
they had like 3,000 birds or something that they actually trained.
Those poor birds.
Yeah, well, I saw some shit, again, IMDb, I don't know if it's true, in the birthday party sequence, to make sure that the balloons popped, they had taped the seagulls' beaks shut and put pins in their mouths.
Oh, no.
And apparently one of them got away. And so they had to scramble to get it back. But that's real, like, in Scrooged when he wants to staple the antlers to the mouse's head. But, it's a lot of that shit where, it's like, yeah, we actually threw the horse down the hill.
Right.
But it's funny because, like, that final scene when they come walking out, I'm looking at that and I'm like, man, this looks so good. There's so many birds. And I had to, it took me a minute to focus to realize, oh, a lot of these birds are like styrofoam birds.
Yeah.
But they look great.
Yeah.
Because
and the way
they're
it's
mixed
lit
in.
And I think they do a really fantastic job
Yeah.
Given the limitations of the time.
I honestly don't. I think that the attack that happens after the playground sequence, so with the kids and stuff, is probably not one of the better attacks.
Right.
I think one of the best, if not the best, is when the birds come in through the chimney.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
when the flock of sparrows comes like dive bombing down the chimney and out into the living room and just turns the whole house into chaos. It's really amazing. It looks really fantastic.
Yeah, I can't imagine how much work it must have been to do that.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I don't know if that was film, overlay, or if it was something they like hand animated or something. I can't tell because it blends really well.
Yeah. I have to say, I think the eyeless corpse looks really good in this.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Looks really good.
Like, it looks genuinely like a dude who got his eyes pecked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That can be a pretty difficult effect to do.
That's what I was thinking. Like, I've seen many more modern movies kind of not pull that off as well.
That's why you need a really skinny guy to do that. So you can build up the bones around the eye, you know?
Ah, sunken eyes, I see.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about this? I mean, maybe this is jumping to the end of our list of things we generally talk about, but would you consider this a horror movie?
You know, I do. I do, because I think there is a monstrous force attacking people that cannot be stopped and is doing it for reasons we don't know or understand.
Yeah.
And that sounds like, like a creature movie to me.
Put that under the supernatural column.
Yeah. So I think it counts. I think, like a lot of Hitchcock stuff, he kind of eschews some of the more traditional touchstones of horror movies, especially at the time, which would be more like, lightning striking and rain out in a dark and foggy night kind of stuff.
One of the things that I was thinking about that occurred to me while I was watching this is I feel like this must have had a huge impact on George Romero for Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Because there is a big section of this movie that feels like it's just Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Especially after she goes catatonic.
Yeah, and everybody's boarded up inside a house.
Yeah, and they've got the sequence where the gas station explodes, which is not a 1-for-1, but that does happen in Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And I think there's a certain kind of vocabulary of images and actions that Hitchcock is kind of establishing here.
Absolutely.
That I don't really know if it existed much before this, because 1963, you're out of the era of the irradiated creature movie, right? And so, and even then, those movies are usually like giant attacking animal.
Right, we're sort of on the borders of sci-fi. That kind of stuff.
Giant ants, giant tarantulas, and stuff like that. This one is this one feels a lot more grounded in the way that they depict the people like holding up in the house. Yeah. And
the general reaction, like people even in the same town don't believe them.
Yeah, that was something that I thought was a little lacking, was like this doesn't say, again, I was thinking like, is this only happening to her? Because people don't seem to be realizing this is going on. And even in that the sequence with the kids, I kind of jokingly said, once they get in the car, they show a shot of the downtown, which is like 50, 100 yards away, and people are just walking around like nothing's going on. And it seems like it's only happening in that section. So, and then when they get to the restaurant, it's like people aren't reacting as that one waitress. She is there to work.
Yes.
She is there to get her tips.
Where are those 2 Bloody Marys?
She doesn't care what's going on outside. But like everybody there, like nobody's really affected by it. They kind of talk about it a little bit once the mother starts freaking out, but and the old woman starts just talking about bird stuff. I did love that scene though. When she's like, there's blackbirds and crows. I don't really know if there's a difference. Complete stranger. Oh, there's a difference. That's
I
welcome.
love that.
Welcome to the internet.
There are a lot of moments in this movie and a lot of Hitchcock movies where there is this unexpected sense of humor to things.
Yeah.
Where like we were saying, there is almost a cop plot in this movie that they then swiftly abandon for the better.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a cop plot, but it's like
there's not enough things for it to be plot.
Yeah.
It's like a cop moment.
This is like the ideal police officer for most horror movies.
Yes.
Where it's he's the guy where you go, this thing is happening, and he's like, I don't know if there's any proof of that.
Yeah.
It's like this person was clearly killed by birds. And he's like, I mean, maybe he was killed first and the birds came in after. It's like,
These birds attacked the children at the party. Well, I mean, were the kids bothering the birds? You shouldn't bother birds.
My favorite thing about it is he posits this idea that maybe someone broke into the house and killed him, and then the birds came in, which doesn't cause him to go, oh shit, that means there's a murderer in the town.
He's like, I mean, it could have just been your normal run-of-the-mill manslaughter.
Yeah, you know.
We have those all the time.
Maybe he, like, stole a goat or something. He had it coming. I don't know.
Yes, but the cop stuff is funny.
It's
funny on purpose, and a lot of the ornithologist stuff is also funny on purpose. The way people are interrupting one another and sort of like butting in and out of conversations, and it's always a little surprising because you think of the reputation this movie now has in pop culture of being like, oh, it's the birds, it's Tippi Hedren running down the street screaming while a bird's in her hair. And instead, a lot of the movie is more just these like weird conversations between people.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Lots of phone calls in this movie.
Yes,
too.
lots of phone calls. I did like that call where it's like, is this happening to you, Dad? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
She's like, what? It's not happening where you are? No, everything seems to be fine here. Yeah, I think it's fun because it does provide the opportunity to bring out what sort of weird conversations people might have in this situation.
Especially in a small town.
Yeah.
You know, where everybody's probably kind of well-tread characters to each other in the town.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, we're like, you know, the town drunk who's yelling, it's the end of the world. And they're just like, all right, Bruce, calm down. And
that stuff is always, I think that is also of the era, too, where it's kind of an older... Well, I guess it's not that old because they even kind of do this in the 80s slasher stuff. But like, there's always it's a classic kind of horror bit to be like, here's the scary stuff, and then here's like a jackass.
Yes,
you know, who just is there to be silly. Like in Bride of Frankenstein, there's that one woman who all she does is like scream and faint that everybody loves. But it reminded me of. We were talking about this a bit last night. We were talking about Oppenheimer and how there's like one joke in that movie, and it's very much a visual joke. And you know, Robert Downey Jr. is playing this kind of very straight ahead, not the modern Robert Downey Jr. type character.
Yes.
And the one joke in the movie they wisely gave to him, which is if you've seen the movie.
Spoiler alert.
When they're all sitting around that table with the big centerpiece in the middle, and then Dane DeHaan says something, and they move the centerpiece out of the way. As soon as Downey did that, I was like, there he is. Like I could like they gave it to the guy with the perfect comic timing to move the thing, and I was like, excellent. Yeah. That's all the humor you're getting out of Oppenheimer, by the way. So.
Well, Matt Damon has a couple tossed away lines that are pretty quippy and fun, but yes. But there's humor running through this movie.
Oh yes, definitely.
Up until like, you know, probably once the gas explosion happens and the guy immolates himself next to his car, it gets a little more serious.
That's the tipping point, right? The tipping point.
The tipping point.
Is when everybody sees someone get fucking exploded.
Yes.
And
then the birds also attack.
Right. Yeah.
Which I love, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, please do.
But I love that there's that moment, that very tense moment where one man has been attacked by the birds and he's knocked the gas pump off of its thing you hang it in on. And there's gas.
The dude who gets sniped in the head by that seagull.
Well, and then there's gas going everywhere, and it's this very tense build up to the man trying to light his cigar by the car, who eventually fucks up and blows himself up. And then it switches to the bird's point of view, which I actually think is really funny.
That's very funny.
To then switch it to like the seagulls flying in and seeing all the fire and being like, "Aha, assholes!" We're coming in now.
Yeah.
But yes, then everything, it escalates very quickly after that, and poor Tippy is trapped in a phone booth trying to keep birds away from her.
That was the another one that I really thought was really effective is that the gas attendant guy who gets knocked in the head.
Yeah.
That looked really good.
Yeah.
And
threw a real bird at him, I'm sure.
Yes. He actually died.
That must be like, imagine trying to be an actor on this movie, and there are moments where they're like, all right, we're going to throw the bird at you, but you can't flinch.
Right.
Because you're not supposed to see it coming. So, all right, we'll do it on 3. Don't flinch.
Yeah.
And then someone throws a live bird at your head.
That's what I always loved about Sam Raimi, like the Evil Dead movies, because everything I've read is like essentially, for most of those movies, it's just Sam Raimi standing just off camera with something ready to smack Bruce Campbell with it. And so like you're trying to pretend like you're riding a horse very seriously with your best friend there, like with a big branch just waiting to smack you in the face.
I'm just really eager to hit you in the head with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think when it really starts picking up and it does kind of turn into like a house siege movie, I think it gets really effective.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it feels like it's establishing a lot of that stuff that many people have used afterwards. How did you feel about the ending?
I think I have like a love-hate relationship with the ending. I sometimes am a little disappointed by it because it just feels very abrupt. And then usually the longer I think about it and I sit with it, the more I like it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Where I'm sort of like, what is the better resolution to this film?
Right. Yeah, I mean, he has the sense to know that there isn't one.
Right. And I do think that the moment that I was talking about earlier between Melanie and Lydia does give some sort of emotional closure in a way, where like they've become a family unit through this horrific series of events.
Right.
And Melanie has been accepted into this family, and they drive off together to get her help.
Yeah.
And I think emotionally and like character-wise, that's a good ending. That's a good ending point to leave these characters.
Yeah, and I think it's again, I think it's really a prototypical zombie movie ending.
Yeah.
Where you've got these 4 people who escape into the world that is now overrun by zombies.
Yeah.
Or in this case, birds.
Yes.
And I think, I think there's the other ending to this movie is what they blow the house up.
Right. Yeah. They lure.
We gotta kill all these birds.
They lure all the birds into one giant warehouse and explode it.
Think about arachnophobia, right?
I've never seen it.
I have. Hi, Mom.
Hi,
but
Mrs. McCormick.
The end of that movie is they blow the house up. That's how they kill the spiders, is they blow the house up.
Yeah.
Which is great, because who doesn't want to see a bunch of fucking spiders get exploded?
I do.
There's a movie, you should watch, Kingdom of the Spiders.
Oh, no.
From like, I think it's like mid to late 70s.
Oh, okay.
William Shatner movie.
Okay, that I could do.
And it's kind of like this. But imagine instead of birds, it's tarantulas.
And instead of Tippy, it's...
Bingo. It's not good, but it's a fun watch.
Okay.
And the ending is actually very similar. Where...
all the spiders just watch them
drive
away.
But it's pretty fucking great. So the end of the last act of the movie or whatever is they're holed up inside this house, and it's mostly like stuffing towels under cracks of doors and stuff to stop the spiders.
Right, because they're spiders.
Yeah. But like, the night breaks and the sun comes up, and I think they get something on the radio, I can't remember. But William Shatner like makes his way to the window, and he looks out the window and he's like, "Oh my God." And then somebody else like, "What's going on?" And they go, "Oh my God." And the last shot of the movie is an exterior shot of like the town, and the entire town is just covered in like spider webs. The whole town has turned into a giant spider web.
Oh my God.
It's amazing. It's so stupid, but it's amazing. And that's I feel like they're going for the same thing here, but
yeah.
Because like those are your two options: you blow the house up
Right.
and try to kill as many birds as you can,
Right.
or you just accept it and hope you survive. And
Yeah.
having them drive away with all of these birds just sitting there silently
Watching them.
is so much more unnerving than
Yes.
like if they had decided to do another bird sequence, you know?
Right. Yeah. Because it's like they're not gone. No one has vanquished them,
Right.
but they're not attacking. And there's a weird, like, you know, throughout the movie, there are sort of these waves of attacks and then a lull, attacks and then a lull, but you don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, there's no rhyme or reason about when they ramp up for an attack and when they decide not to. And
Right,
so you're
yeah.
left in that moment thinking, like, oh my God, are the birds going to come after them? Like, are they going to start taking off and flying after the car? Are they, like, what are they doing? Why are they going to do it? Are they not? And you're kind of just left with that suspense.
Yeah.
And then the car is driving away and then the film is over.
Yeah, I was just trying to think if I don't know if the band The Byrds existed in 1963, but like if they made this movie now, that last shot would them be driving away to everything turn turn turn. There is a season.
Which actually leads into an interesting point about this movie is that there is no soundtrack.
David Crosby is the no.
He voices all the birds.
Yes, he does. I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah, there's no sound. There's no music.
Yeah, that's
the only
really
actual
interesting.
music is when Melanie plays the piano.
Right.
And the children sing. That's it.
Because even over the Universal logo, there's no music, right?
Yeah, it's just birds calling.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't clocked that.
Yeah, there's no and I think that might add to what feels so strange about the first half of this movie.
I hadn't clucked that.
Oh, funny.
Yep.
Someone play this man off. But I wonder if that kind of adds to the sense of strangeness in the first half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
At least I think it might for me, because the first half reads like it's supposed to almost be a rom-com.
Yes.
Like they've had this meet cute in the pet store, and then she's decided to do some crazy manic pixie dream girl style, like, I'm just going to go to his house.
Yeah.
I'm just going to find him. And then rather than being reasonably creeped out by this stalker, he's like absolutely charmed by her, even though she's followed him and is a pathological liar.
Mm-hmm.
All of this plays like we're supposed to be rooting for this romance.
Yeah.
But there's no music. So you miss, I feel like in a lot of rom-coms and romantic movies, the music cues you that this is supposed to be sweet.
Right.
This is supposed to be charming. This is supposed to be a moment of two people falling in love, and we can tell because of the way the music is. And in this, where there's no music, it's just kind of awkward at times.
Even when she's driving there,
Yeah, it's
like
just
that's when you would
screeching of her
expect.
tires.
You would expect like boop 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 boop.
Yeah, some jaunty little 60s
Elmer
like
Bernstein
ditty,
music
yeah.
or something. Yeah.
And instead it's literally just the screeching of her tires and the sound of the car.
Yeah. I think that's a really smart move because it really does it does keep you heightened to the times where it's all you hear is like
Yes.
like just the like the slight fluttering in the background.
Yep, a distant caw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I do think, as far as influence and stuff like this too, I think that the real horror of this is that it is so unknowable about what's going on. Like they don't try to make an excuse or an explanation.
Nope.
And I think that's something that a movie like Jaws takes from this.
Absolutely.
Where it's like it's nature, there's no explanation,
Yep.
there's no
The shark is just doing what the shark is doing.
right.
These birds are just attacking people.
Yeah.
We don't know why.
Yep. And then, they're still out there.
Yep.
Look up in the sky. And that's that's the other thing too, is much like Jaws, I think what sticks with you is you walk out of the theater and there are birds everywhere.
Yes.
And
yes.
you're going to look up and you're going to see two birds on a wire and go, I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's a third one, then I'm calling the cops.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think that's what makes this an effective horror movie, and why it stays in the realm of being a horror movie is because it genuinely left people afraid of just normal ass birds.
Yeah.
And made them feel mysterious and unknowable.
Yeah.
Rather than it took something mundane and made it scary.
Yeah, unlike that hack Spielberg that had to use a giant monster with sharp teeth.
Yeah,
everyone.
That's
everyone. Yeah. Oh, shark is scary. No shit.
Yeah,
pal.
of course.
Yikes.
Sharks are actually very fascinating creatures and an important part of the ecosystems of our oceans. So.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one. I'd be really curious to see how if this movie didn't exist and they made this movie now, like
it would be Birdemic.
I was thinking like you cannot remake this movie now.
No.
Thankfully, for better or worse, Birdemic exists.
Birdemic is a real movie. If you want to torture yourself, you can go watch it.
Yeah, they made 3 of them.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. They made 7 Sharknadoes. Did you know that?
I knew they made a lot. I didn't know it was
one of them involves time travel.
Great. No.
What was I saying before that?
If you if this movie never existed in its current, if you
made this movie now with the exact same structure, I would be really curious what the response would be, because that beginning half where it's just kind of romantic comedy, I could see as not playing very well. But, I mean, in the era of these more elevated movies that have these like slow burns, maybe it would play. I don't know. I'm not really sure.
I feel like if you made it right now, it would benefit from the sort of like horror movie renaissance we've had in the last 10 or 15 years, where it's like movies like Hereditary and like Pearl and X exist. Barbarian. Like movies like that are out in the world and they have found their niche audience. I think if you made this movie in like 2005 and tried to put it out, people would be like, that movie sucks.
Well, the 2005 version
was Birdemic.
is at the end of the movie, all the birds form into this giant CGI huge bird.
Yes.
That they have something to fight.
Yes. Yeah.
I was thinking where that one clip where they're listening to the radio and they're like, the military's been called. I was thinking, is there a better day as a soldier when,
Buckle up, boys.
especially in 1963, when your sergeant comes in and says, all right, boys, this is the day. And you're like, oh, fuck, we're going to Vietnam. And he's like, get your guns. We got to kill as many birds as we can. You're just like, oh, thank you. Full auto.
Love Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is number 38 on our list. How do you feel about the placement? Should it be higher? Should it be lower? Should it be taken off the list entirely?
I feel pretty good about the placement.
Yeah.
Mostly because, like we're saying, it really does have such ripple effects down through other horror movies throughout time in ways big and small.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of belongs in the top 50.
I would say so.
And it's just such a pop cultural touchstone.
Yeah.
If you're like, I had to cross the parking lot to get to my car yesterday, and God, it was like a scene from The Birds.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what you mean.
I'm trying to decide if it gets too much credit for being a Hitchcock movie. Like just having that name attached to it. It's like, oh, yeah, of course it's in the top 50. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really argue with it that much. Do I think it's I don't know if it's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, but
no.
I do think it's, once it really gets going, it gets going. It's very, very fun. Yeah, I might knock it down a little bit to like around 50.
Yeah.
But I think I'm generally okay with the placement as it stands.
Yeah.
We did Attack the Block last week. We subbed that in. I don't know if you knew this, but I was under the impression we had recorded Attack the Block like last year. We recorded that 3 years ago.
Jesus Christ.
So I put that up, and we had done an intro at the time.
Wow.
For when we eventually put it on the main feed. Yeah. Saying like, oh, we did this and blah, blah, blah. And I did a second. Amanda doesn't listen to the show. I did a second intro.
I don't listen. I can't stand the sound of my own voice.
I did an intro to the intro where I explained that the intro we do is now horribly out of date.
Nice.
Because to the point where it is not the correct numbering for Attack the Block. The number that we say in our intro is different than the number it currently sits at.
Of course. I mean, those do move around fairly regularly, I feel like. So.
And so I was shuffling through when I was putting it together. I was shuffling through, and it was all this talk of like the pandemic and not going anywhere. And I was like, wait, when is this from? It's from December of 2020. So like right in the pocket of all that stuff.
Wow.
So,
like deep in the pocket of all that stuff.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Well, I'm glad it's not December 2020 anymore.
Yeah, me too.
Can always remind myself of that and feel better about everything.
That was 3 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. Those years did not count.
No, not really.
2020 through 2022 just like don't count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I am only 37.
I like these rules.
But we kind of shuffled around a bit, so we're going to have a wild card, 2 list movies, and a wild card.
Oh, okay.
And so the first wild card is my pick, and seeing as we are right in the gunt of summer.
No.
Right under the right under the stomach fold, deep into that sweaty crevice of summer.
That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard.
We're going to be doing a movie we've done 2 camp like lake movies on Patreon so far. We've done The Burning and we've done Mario Bava's Bay of Blood.
Yes. It's more of a bay than a lake. But.
That's true. It's more of a bay than a lake. So we're bringing summer camp to the main feed. We're going to be doing sleepaway camp.
It's been like 2 years since we were doing Friday the 13th movies, so I can handle it.
Oh, yeah. Amanda has never seen Sleepaway Camp.
I have not.
I am excited.
You look like a kid on Christmas.
I might let you just talk for an hour and a half about Sleepaway Camp.
Okay.
While I just sit here with a grin on my face.
Yeah, a bowl of popcorn and a whiskey or something.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to say anything. Okay, that's the end of the episode. Thank you guys. If you want to help support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/thepenskyfile, where Amanda and I are in the midst of doing video nasties this year.
Yes.
I had begun to think about what we were going to do next year.
Ooh.
And I was kind of wondering if we maybe don't just do Halloween movies, like the franchise.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done Halloween 1 yet.
Yeah.
And at this point, there's more than 12, I think.
Yeah.
So we might have to pick and choose a little bit.
Yes.
But you don't seem too interested in it.
Clay,
so
now
we'll
we have to do it. You've said it to me.
I'll put it up for a vote. See what the people paying the money want us to do.
If they don't vote for it, I'm going to show up at all their houses in a Michael Myers mask.
And we know where those houses are because we got their credit cards. Anyway.
All of the patrons cancel their memberships.
Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.